All right. This morning, special Zoom cast with the head football coach, athletic director of Lugoff-Elgin High School. Good morning, Matt. How are you?
Good, Rhino. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. All right. So I guess we'll talk about this coronavirus first before we go back. Um, normally your day is split between school until like 3, and then you got all the spring sports: baseball, softball, soccer, track and field, golf, tennis. So your day is pretty busy from sun up to sundown, and then baseball and soccer that lasts into the nighttime, 9 o'clock maybe. So what is the adjustment now? I mean, I know you guys have been putting up the senior pictures on the baseball field by the highway so everybody can see all the seniors and everything like that. But what is your daily your daily motion now, and what do you see going forward? Maybe a time frame.
It's interesting. I never anticipated it getting to this point. But we're basically in a holding pattern waiting on the high school league or the governor to make a decision as to what's going to happen. We've been talking to other coaches, other ADs about possibilities for spring sports if for some chance we do return on May 1st. Something as simple as having, region tournaments to determine your region seeding, then run into the playoffs and try to play out the end of the year. Now, is that our decision to make? No. That's the decision of the high school league. And so we're going to have to wait and see. We've got plenty of contingencies. I heard it on the radio the other day talking about NFL, talking about Major League Baseball, everything. I don't see where there's not anything that can't be on the table. You got to review and look at everything. And, it kills me to know that some of these kids going in their senior year, their career was ended before they knew it. The opportunity to play in college isn't there for everybody, and high school athletics is a big part of these kids' lives. And just to lose that opportunity is huge.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Especially like as far as baseball, played one game. They played their one game on Thursday. Fortunately for Lugoff, they beat their rival Canman. That's one thing I guess they can take away from their senior years. If you're only going to play one game and you win, you beat your rival. But still, the anticipation, a lot of these guys trying to showcase their talent to get maybe a scholarship to go to a mid-major, a D2, D3, or junior college. They don't get that opportunity now. And going forward, it's, with they saying that Legion baseball won't happen, it's going to be harder for those guys to showcase, the ones who haven't already signed, their talents.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, even, looking at recruiting, spring is a big time for recruiting for these colleges coming in, being able to watch kids practice, work out, things like that. They're losing that opportunity. I spoke with the offensive line coach yesterday at Carolina, and he doesn't have his hands on his kids. They're in there, they're doing Zoom meetings, doing install and things like that. But, you're putting a lot of merit into those kids doing what they need to do to prepare in case there is that situation where we get to play.
Yeah, and I in the previous Zoom I talked about how long it would take, because you're talking about kids, offensive line, bigger guys that may take. Trevor Lawrence is probably can go out there right now and spin it all day long. A guy like T. Higgins is in that shape because of their body type. They don't, but you got bigger linemen who may have not been doing cardio or running, and they put on 20 pounds and their wind's not there. Plus, you're starting your season back at 95 degrees, 100% humidity, 3 o'clock game, SEC, network or something. It's going to take, as far as your perspective as a high school football coach, how long will you think you need your guys' conditioning and preparation before you can kick off that jamboree or kick off that first game? How long, time-wise, do you think you need?
I think to effectively condition these kids and to get them ready, I think you need 6 weeks. Because you're not talking about coming in October, November when, the temperatures drop. You're talking about 100-degree temperatures. So hoping that these kids are doing what they're supposed to do, but you got to plan for the worst and expect to have to bring them in here at ground zero and build them up to where they can perform safely in the heat.
That's true. All right, well, let's scale it back here. All right, so you went to North Augusta High School back in the day. We won't say no dates, but way back in the day. Big time recruit, you decided to go to South Carolina. What was it that made you decide to go to South Carolina versus maybe somewhere else? And was it a coaching thing or a hometown thing? What was it made you want to play at Williams-Brice Stadium?
I had my final four choices were South Carolina, Clemson, Georgia, and Tennessee. I did have an official visit set up for the University of Miami. Had to cancel it because it was the same weekend I was playing in the state championship. So, that kind of eliminated that. My big goal was to have my parents be able to come watch me play, to be within, a reasonable drive for them. Going through the recruiting process, was not a fan of Johnny Majors. Phil Fulmer was my recruiting guy. He was a tight ends coach, great guy, love him to death, but I just didn't see myself up there with Johnny Majors. Danny Ford, he had to resign about 2 or 3 weeks prior to signing date. So, I think, who was the guy they brought in from Rice?
Ken Hatfield.
Ken Hatfield, yeah. Ken Hatfield came in and, it just wasn't for me. And then it came down to South Carolina and Georgia. I grew up right there on the state line. And, bottom line is I wanted to study engineering. And, Georgia didn't have an engineering program.
All right, so you decide on South Carolina. You go to South Carolina, play under Sparky Woods. And you really didn't have a lot of success as a team. There was some lean years at South Carolina, 6-5, 3-6-2, 5-6, 4-7. So as a football player, though, and without the social media, without people getting on there calling Sparky Woods a bum or Steve Tannehill a bum, or like they do today, where you can, after every game, you can just pick apart every player, the AD, the president, whatever, and raise a lot of hell with local radio and Twitter. How was it, the college life as a football player for a major university in Columbia? How were you received? Like, were you like you and the guys? I know you were a bigger guy, so nobody was messing with you verbally, I'm sure. But just as a group of guys with the Tannehills, the Rob DeBoers, the Brandon Bennett's.
We had a great group of guys. We had a great group of players. I wouldn't change anything. I love my experience at South Carolina. Right now, I've got 2 kids at South Carolina,
Right.
Going to school there. It was a good time. It was a lot of work. Obviously we put in a lot of time, a lot of effort into preparing. It wasn't because of lack of trying that we weren't successful. It just, we moved into SEC I believe it was my junior year.
Right.
And honestly, we weren't built for the SEC at that point in time.
Yeah.
We were independent and that's probably where we should have stayed until we were ready for the SEC. But now, they're growing, forward in that, and they've gotten the players to be able to compete in the SEC. But the people that are going to talk junk about you, that's why social media is such a big thing right now, is they don't have to stand in front of you and say it. And even nowadays, or, back when I was there, whether we hadn't won a game or won every one of them, they're not going to talk bad about you to your face. Yeah. It's the ones that hide behind the shield of social media and can write whatever they want without having to stand up to it.
Cool. So do you have any contact with those guys now, like Tannehill, Rob DeBoer? I know Tannehill, is a local guy now, and Rob DeBoer is a physical beast doing all kind of fasting and physical fitness things. And even Stanley Pritchard on that team, he had a good pro run, with the Dolphins and such. So do you have any contact with those 90 to 93 guys?
Very limited. Only when we do something down there at Carolina, even, going through and playing with the Panthers and all that. I had a group of guys that I, kind of hung out with in football. But when we were away from football, I've got a group of guys that I hunt and fish with, play golf with. Those are the guys that those relationships really lasted.
All right, so you leave South Carolina as a free agent, sign with the Saints, and then the Panthers come on, I guess in '95, and they sign you. You're one of the original Panthers. So coming in, when you left South Carolina, was pro football on your radar? I know you played a tight end role with a lot of guys. There was a lot of 6'5", 300-pound white guys or 260-pound white guys at tight end at South Carolina. So the balls were limited. Didn't use a tight end like a lot of schools did. So was pro football on your radar, or is it something you did because all you've been doing for the last 10 years is play football? How did the signing with the Panthers go for you?
Well, it was interesting. Coming out of college, I had the opportunity to play in the Senior Bowl. So I went down and played in the Senior Bowl. So obviously my chances were probably a little bit better than most. What killed me is against Florida my senior year, I tore my PCL. So it put me a little bit behind the curve. I was busted goods at that point. But, my whole thought process is the same way I treat everything. I had an opportunity to go with New Orleans my rookie year. My thought process is let's go down there and give everything I got. If it ain't good enough, it ain't good enough. I'll go back. I'll finish my engineering degree. I'll be a civil engineer. Made it on the practice squad there for about half the year, and then they had offensive line issues, so they had to bring some linemen in. Back then, the practice squad was 5 guys. I was actually the number 3 tight end behind Wesley Walls and Irv Smith. So, I had 2 pretty darn good tight ends in front of me. But, then I had the opportunity to work out with the Panthers, and, that was interesting in itself. We went up to Winthrop for the tryout. There were about 250 guys out there, and there's guys out there in high school jerseys, and I'm sitting there going, how realistic is this opportunity? And I was the only guy they signed from that day. So, it worked out well for me. And, even when I got moved, from even my first year as a tight end, you got Pete Metzelaars, you had Kurt Hawes, who they picked in the expansion draft. You had Vince Marrow, they picked in the expansion draft. Lawyer Tillman, who was a wide receiver that was 240 pounds that they were moving to tight end. And you sit there and you go, they're going to keep 3 of these guys. And here I am, I'm a free agent. 2 of the guys are expansion draft guys that they got to pay because they kept them after June 1st. What are my chances of making it? I don't know. But again, I'm going to go in, do my best every day and see what happens. I ended up coming out number 2 tight end when it was all said and done. So then the next year they come back and they want to sign Wesley Walls. And, I was never one for stretching the field. I was more for stretching my pants and being able to block. So they said, hey, we feel like you can move to offensive line. So it gave me another opportunity. And, my other option was be unemployed. So I figured go ahead and give it the best I could. And again, it worked out for me.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing to hang up the number 87 jersey or 85 jersey and put on a 66 jersey. And I guess it is comparable because you're big body. Like you said, you're as a tight end, you were more of a blocker than a Gronk run down the field 40 yards, so you had a technique. That's what you grew up doing. So it wasn't that big of a change, but like you said, it kept you in the league. All right, so that first year, not so great. The second year, you end up going 12-4, make the playoffs. You got, like you said, you got Wesley Walls. Kevin Green comes in. You got Sam Mills. You got a lot of good players. I think you had 6 or 7 Pro Bowlers on that team. How was that as a professional, winning, going into playoffs? You beat Dallas in the playoffs and then losing to Green Bay right before the Super Bowl.
We had some great leaders. You talk about Sam Mills. You talk about a Kevin Green, Kerry Collins, Steve Berline, Willie Green. I think one of the most unsung heroes of that team is Anthony Johnson, played running back for us. Yeah. Anthony was probably a mid-4.7s guy, but, he ran the ball very well for us and really didn't get much credit for what we were doing. But, it was a great group of guys. And I run into those guys occasionally when I go back up there for things. And the one thing we talk about is team players, team guys. And we see, I hate to say this, but Cam Newton was not a team guy. And had he been on the team that was built like we were built back then, Kevin Green, Sam Mills, one of those guys would have got him in check.
I believe you're right there. So you go and you play. Also, it's a name that kind of stood out to me. Rocket Ishmael played on the team. How was that? Was there a
Rocket's one of the most down-to-earth guys you'll be around. He is hilarious, just easygoing, laid back. worked hard, obviously was fast. You don't get named Rocket for being slow,
True.
but just a great, great individual.
All right, so a few years later, Dom Capers is fired. George Seifert comes in. How did that change the dynamic of the Carolina Panthers? A good way, a bad way? I know Seifert had come from San Francisco, where it was a more of a Joe Montana, Steve Young, wide open kind of thing. So how did that change?
Quit running the ball when George Seifert came in.
Y'all West Coast offense?
Yeah, it went West Coast, and I mean, you know, a buddy of mine, Grant Wistrom, was defensive end with the LA Rams, or with St. Louis Rams at the time.
Came from Nebraska.
We were playing him, and he comes up, he goes, "Hey man, we didn't even work the run game this week. All we did was pass rush all week because y'all run the ball 6 times a game." You know, the media started wearing into us, and you know, we got a story. Tamaga Biakabatuka came into the offensive line room and said, "Hey guys, you guys need to block better. That's why we're not running." And we were like, "Do what?" Yeah. And so we threw him out of the room. Then as a group, we went down to Seifert's office and said, "Look, coach, you know, the media's wearing us out. We're not worried about it. Now our players are starting to call us out saying this is why we're not running the ball." And we were all in there, and he said, "So what are you saying?" I said, "Well, we want an opportunity to prove that we can run the ball." And he sat back in his chair and he crossed his arms. He said, "Guys, if it was up to me, I'd throw it every effing play." And I said, "Well, I know where we stand." So we all walked out. And the next week, Bianca Batuka got hurt. Then we played Green Bay the following week on Monday night, and Brad Hoover ran for about 150 yards. So it was not the fact that we weren't blocking. It's the fact that we weren't committing to the run. George was a good coach, but, you know, he wasn't for me. Let's just say it that way.
So you saying you prefer the run block? I mean,
everybody likes to run block as an offensive lineman. When you're able to control the game running it, I'll never forget, we were playing the Rams, and we ran the same play 5 times in a row against them. And I can't remember if it's Todd Light or one of their safeties was in the huddle jumping up and down, and he's yelling at his defense going, "They're running the same damn play, and they're going to keep running it until we stop it," jumping up and down. That, as an offensive lineman, that makes you smile.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so you like the contact. You didn't want to have to wait, hold the pocket. You just want to go up there and hit somebody and move the pile.
I want to know where I'm going and get there.
Yeah. Okay. So the Panthers. Well, let me ask you about Bianca Batuka real quick. Big, highly touted guy out of Michigan. What you say, far as ranking, far as running back? Was he good? Was he?
I don't know. How deep are you ranking?
Well, not
top 10, no. Top 20, no.
No, definitely not that. But I mean, physically and was he could he have been a really good running back? You know, it's hard to tell once they get in. I know at Michigan he ran hard, tough guy. He's just one of them names I saw on the list, and I thought I'd ask about because
you know, you put him up against a guy like Anthony Johnson. In my mind, he ain't even close. Anthony Johnson didn't have near the ability that Bianca Batuka did.
Work ethic.
But his work ethic was unbelievable. He was a selfless player. You know, he appreciated what everybody got. You know, when running backs would rush for 1,000 yards, you see guys going and buying gifts for their offensive line. Well, heck, you know, Anthony Johnson was married, had like 6 kids. So as an offensive line, we all took up money and bought him a watch.
That's pretty good. All right, so the Panthers run ends. You end up leaving, you go to Washington. An interesting year at Washington in that particular year because you got a lot of older veterans. You got Marty Schottenheimer coming in. Marty Schottenheimer was the coach, right? Okay.
Yes.
So you got guys like yourself, Marco Coleman, Bruce Smith, who was NFL Hall of Famer. He comes in. You know, they're picking up all these veterans. I think Marco Coleman was there. Jeff George was on that team.
LeVar Arrington.
Yeah, LeVar Arrington. You got a bunch of guys who were highly touted, and their best days were behind them. I'll say it like that because, you know, Bruce Smith was a Bill forever and ever. Jeff George never really he had the rocket arm, but never really called on to be Dan Marino like everybody thought he was
during the year too.
Even better. So how was that? You know, everybody says Marty Schottenheimer got a raw deal on this situation.
No doubt. Marty Schottenheimer is probably one of my favorite coaches I ever played for. The one thing about Marty, he was honest. He was forthright. If you asked him a question, you were going to get the answer, whether it was the answer you were looking for or not. just a good person, true to our team. He definitely got a raw deal. I mean, we finished, I think, that year 8-8.
He did.
But I think we won like 5 out of our last 8 because people started buying into his system. Did we have some older guys? Yeah, I think Dan Snyder, he thinks that he can go buy a team. You don't win the NFL by buying a team. You win by getting good young talent and developing.
Yeah. All right, so that's the end of your career. After the 2001 season with not 2001. Yeah, I guess it is 2001. 2001 season at Washington, you're done as a professional football player. All right, now when we hear all these the players union kind of deals where they're working on CBAs and working for y'all, y'all's insurance or your well-being in the future. Are you involved in that? Or does that have any benefit to you as far as like healthcare, CTE thing,
Yeah,
pensions?
I mean, they've got a bunch of healthcare benefits, things like that. There's a bunch of programs. Right now, I'm doing a program through the NFL Trust where I'm going and earning my master's degree, and they're taking care of that for me. We actually had a meeting in Columbia putting together a retired players group here in the Midlands area. So we got the groundwork laid on that. We're trying to get that thing pushed forward and moving.
That's good. I didn't know. I thought you had played long enough to qualify, and I know the players union is always trying to work, especially for the older guys who are their health is in question, or a lot of these guys are dying, due to CTE or effects of playing football. So, hey, that's a good thing. All right. So moving forward, football is over. At what point do you decide you're going to get into coaching? Where does that click to say, all right, I'm done playing. I'm gonna work in the football field from here out?
When I first retired, we had moved down to Bluffton, living down at the coast, and we had a couple businesses going. I was doing some stuff with some deer stand manufacturing. We also had another company that we were leasing out video equipment to marketing companies. And I just told my wife when I said, I'm getting bored. I need to get back involved with kids and, get into coaching. Well, I was coaching at the time. I was volunteer coaching down at Bluffton High School for my buddy Jeremy West. And she said, well, you're already coaching. I said, no, I want to go somewhere where it's important. Down there, it was hard getting kids to come out because there were so many other distractions. I said, so I either want to go to a community where football's important to that community or go coach college. And, I got a great wife and she's been supportive of everything I do. And she said, well, then make it happen. So, first thing I had to do was get a degree. When I left Carolina, I didn't redshirt. So I was 10 hours short of my civil engineering degree. Well, at that point in time, I had 4 kids, 2 businesses. I was volunteer coaching at a high school, and I was volunteer athletic director at a private school down there. So for me to graduate, I'd have had to commute to Columbia 3 times a week, 2 hours each way. It wasn't feasible. So I picked a new major, used my core credits, and I ended up doing 57 hours of classwork in a year and got another degree.
All right. So is that where you go to VMI?
That's when that got me into VMI. They were running the triple option up there at the time, and Sparky Woods wanted to make the move back to pro style offense. And I sold him on the fact that I think it's a good thing because when you talk zone blocking schemes, you do a lot of double teams. You do a lot of to where VMI. I'm not going to sit out here. We had some great kids and some great people, but we didn't have the best players. I just couldn't say that. But to be able to put us at an advantage through our schemes is what we're trying to do.
All right, so you run that course, and then I guess becoming a high school coach, athletic director comes on the table. So you see, I guess there's a network where open jobs are, maybe kind of like a career builder for coaching, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, you just I monitored it. After about going into my 4th year there, I started thinking more and more about it because I was missing my kids grow up. My first staff meeting was 7 a.m. We would practice about 6 p.m. After that, we'd have meetings. The only time I saw my kids was at dinner time for about an hour. So I started looking at that point. You get on all the different websites. There's all kinds of coaching websites talking about college jobs and high school jobs. And I wanted to get back to South Carolina. My wife has some family down here too, and just get back, in the Columbia area if possible. And this was just a great opportunity for me.
Yeah, it seems like it's worked out good. Your family, your kids, your oldest two graduated here.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife's got a business here. You bought a house. You fishing. You hunting. And I think the community as a whole was taking you in, and welcomed you. You come in, you take over a football program that struggled a bit. Well, not a bit. My whole life struggled my whole life, much like the Gamecocks have. It's a weird parallel. But you come in, you hire some guys to change the program around, and then you work, you build, you get some wins, you beat Camden, you get into the playoffs, get the first playoff win since 2010, and you're building guys, and then not so much wins and losses, but you see it paying off with guys going Division One. You see the Wyatt Campbells, the Hartness. You see Seth Branham, leaving and playing ball, and you see Parker Clements here this year going to Virginia Tech. So you see the work that's going into it. I know you can say you can agree with this. We're a 5A school, but we don't have 5A coming. You got 30 ball players, 35 ball players. We can field 6 football teams with band members and only 30, football players. So our hands are kind of tied with numbers of where we're at. But you can see the progression, and you can see winning football games, beating teams sometimes you're not supposed to beat, and the development, strength and conditioning of Lugoff-Elgin football. It's come a long way since you've gotten here, for sure.
I think that's one of the biggest things is getting Coach Armstrong here and getting this strength conditioning program in. If you look at the guys that have moved on, obviously they're big guys, big frames. So, that's something that God blessed them with, but they put in the work in the weight room, and we've got a lot of kids. I mean, even you look at like a Caleb McDonald. Caleb McDonald wasn't a big kid. He was 5'5", 140 pounds, but goes to the state strength meet, sets a new record for his weight class in total weight.
Yeah.
The guys that bought in, and Caleb was a big part of our team. His football career was going to end after high school, and he was pretty well aware of that, other than a walk-on opportunity. And but he made the most of his time and the facilities and the means that we provided for him.
All right. Before we go forward to personal life stuff, hobbies and hunting, fishing, outdoors, spending time with the family, let's go back just real quick hitter. Your biggest memory in Williams-Brice Stadium. What was the best memory walking off that field or singing the alma mater with the student section and the band? What was the biggest, or maybe it wasn't at Williams-Brice Stadium, but as a South Carolina Gamecock, what's your biggest memory, and who's the best player you played against in college?
Biggest memory, probably beating Georgia in between the hedges or winning at Clemson. In the 4 years I was there, they won at home. And they won at Carolina. We won at Clemson both times. So, those are pretty big. Winning the state championship in Williams-Brice was a big event for me. Best player I ever played against in college, God, nothing really stands out and strikes me. If you want to say in the NFL, I can give you hands down, bar none.
Well,
John Randall.
Let me stop real quick. All right, that winning at Clemson was the Tanny Hill, knocking out the park, signing the Tiger. That's one of my top 4. Obviously not in the same realm as you being, on the field with it, but that's one of my top 4 memories ever. Just because the long-haired kid from Altoona, Pennsylvania, who says he's going to start by the end of the season and goes and wins 5 out of the next 6, and the excitement he brought, the cocky Yankee kid who comes down to Columbia, South Carolina, and does it. That's definitely a big memory of mine. Fast forward, like you said, John Randall, just blackout pain, looked like a professional wrestler. He could have slid right into Monday Night Nitro, and the mic'd up on NFL films, always screaming and hollering and going crazy. So yeah, give me.
That's what he was like all the time. I think the difference between like a John Randall and a Warren Sapp is Warren Sapp was a great player, but he took plays off. John Randall did not take plays off. Another guy that was in the same mold as John Randall, his name was Leroy Glover. Mm-hmm. Played with the Saints, played with the Cowboys. I'm going to tell you, both of them built the same, probably 6'1", 6'2", 285 pounds, Both of them really quick. Both of them really strong.
Cool. So what's your best memory on the NFL field? Is it a playoff win with Dallas, or do you have an individual moment that you?
Yeah, I think beating Dallas at home because, you're coming through and, that's when Dallas still had the dynasty. They had the Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman. I mean, they had the dudes. And, that was a team that, I was still pretty young. So those are players that I had watched, on Sundays just hanging out with the boys. And to have an opportunity to play them and beat them when they had all this prestige and this aura about them, that was special.
Cool. All right. So moving forward, AD at Lugoff-Elgin High School, got a lot of stuff when you play, 20 sports and everything else. So what do you do to relax? I know you're a big outdoors guy. So what's your normal, let's say, fall and then, of course, spring? What are you doing? I know you and your oldest son, Hunter, I see he's a river master from what I can see from social media. He knows how to fish them rivers in Columbia. He's come back home going to USC and he's found a little honey hole here and there. But what's your hobbies outside of watching sports?
Anything outside. I love to hunt, love to fish, love to play golf. Right now it's turkey season. So spent a lot of time in the wood turkey hunting. I had been playing some golf with my youngest child. He likes to play. I have gone down to visit Hunter a few times, and we've absolutely torn the stripers up.
Yeah.
But, anything outside. Hell, probably in the last 2 weeks, I probably played more games of horse than I played my entire life.
Yeah.
Being home, being on confinement, quarantine, me and the boys are in the driveway shooting it up.
I imagine, and I guarantee a lot of people are playing a lot more board games and card games and doing everything you can to try to stay entertained because this shelter in place things for the birds. I mean, it just so much to just go into a restaurant and being able to sit down and eat, eat a bowl of chips and salsa and drink a cold one and go get a steak, or whatever. So
it's been a good opportunity for me to sit at home and cook a lot. And my wife, she's got a big garden, a greenhouse and everything. So I've been planting and building and doing everything like that. And, just having quality time with my kids, man. Maybe this is God's way of saying, hey man, everybody slow down.
That's a good point. And I think if you do I thought about this the other day, as far as economics, people talk about, I know it's hurting some people who aren't able to work or whatever, but this should be a wake-up call that you don't have to go eat out all the time. You can get that same steak for $12 that you're paying $50 for. And like you said, you can plant your own cucumbers and tomatoes instead of paying for such. And you can find entertainment that doesn't actually cost a lot of money. All right. So your life hadn't changed much as far as going because hunting and fishing is still open for the most part. But what, maybe as a family, what are you going to do? Say this summer, school's out, football training's out, 4 kids are out of school and back at home. What are you looking to do possibly? Maybe what is your family looking to do or generally do like June through August before fall training starts back up?
What I'm going to be doing is I've got 2 classes over the summer with my master's, so I'll be doing that. But, probably very similar to what we're doing right now. We're going to be spending some time in the pool, hanging out, doing things around the house. When summer gets here, we'll be fishing. May do some impromptu camping trips.
Okay.
Just something to get outside. I can't stand sitting inside. If I sit inside, I'm gonna put TV on. My wife will be on me about all you do is sit inside and watch TV, which is true. When I go inside, I stop. When I go outside, I go. So I'll stay outside, but there'll be plenty of stuff going this whole summer.
Yeah, I guarantee you. Well, that's what I said. I know your outdoor schedule is one where, you're always on the go, so it hadn't really slowed you down except for maybe public access to certain places. All right, I'm going to end it with this. We got all the football out the way, I think. I'm hoping we get the spring sports back in just for the simple fact that, maybe those seniors, like you said, can get a region slate in, maybe play in the playoffs, something like that. It sucks for the seniors. It sucks for any of them because, recruiting time, a lot of time is with the juniors. A lot of the seniors have already been seen for years. So this is a question I ask everybody. rank me your top 4 Little Debbie snack cakes. I know you're a snack cake guy. You walking into the gate station on the way in the morning. What you need a snack? What's your Little Debbie? What's your top 4 Little Debbies?
Top 4 Little Debbies. Well, probably need to top it off with the Christmas tree Little Debbie snack cakes because
Okay,
of the red sprinkles.
there you go.
Second one will be the zebra cake rolls.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are pretty solid. Next one's going to be the peanut butter bars, not to be confused with the nutty bars. The layered wafer ones I don't like. I like the one that's the cookie with the rolling
With the
peanut
layer
butter.
of peanut butter in there. Yes, sir.
Exactly.
That's
And
old
then
school.
the final one probably got to go with the good old oatmeal cream pie.
I'm telling you, man. I told people I do this, and I said the older I get, the oatmeal cream pie my papa always had on the coffee table, and it was kind of like to me like slaw. I just kind of overlooked slaw, but now when I turned 40, I eat a lot of slaw, and I love an oatmeal pie. I think I'm getting old, but you can't go wrong with oatmeal pie. Oatmeal pie and toast cheese crackers, man. That'll get you on by to the next meal if you're out in the woods or something like that. So.
Absolutely.
All right, Matt. Well, I appreciate you taking this time, breaking down the Gamecocks, the Panthers, the NFL, outdoors. Hopefully, we'll see you at Optimus Field or at some demon sporting event here before this year is over. And then hopefully, we'll see you on the banks at the Congaree. I'll be looking for an invite. I got some of them 3-inch swim baits, so I'm ready to do some work on some stripers now.
I'll let you know when the water level goes back down.
All right, Matt. I appreciate it. Have a good day, man.
Thanks, Rhino. Take care.
All right, bud. Thank you.